Hi, this is Jim Thomason of Best Software, and I'm here to show you a couple of quick tricks and tips that didn't fall into the other tutorials. First thing to know is that Debtinator will occasionally archive information. If it's something that it feels is no longer active, for example, a debt that's been paid down to $0 or an expense that no longer is occurring, it'll archive things. An archived piece of information is just one that's still in the data file, but it's not normally visible to you. So for example, if we decide that this money market account is no longer being used, we can choose to archive it, and it disappears. Oh, I'm sorry, in this case it actually shows up in brown because if you right-click on a table, you can choose to show only unarchived items, in which case it does vanish, or you can show archived and unarchived, in which case the archived ones are highlighted in brown. An archived item is inactive. It won't actually do anything in the system. It's just hanging around so you can refer back to it for historical purposes. Right-click on it again to choose to unarchive it. And for example, you may not actually want something to automatically archive. You may have a credit card that has a $0 balance currently, but you still occasionally use it. In that case, if you right-click on it, you can uncheck the box to automatically archive this item if it becomes inactive. Another useful thing to know about the system is getting information out of it. Pardon me, I'm currently running an unregistered copy, so it won't let me run more than 6 months into the future. But simplest way to get things out of your scenario is just to copy and paste. Select the rows that you want, copy them, paste them wherever you choose. You can also export them. If you go to the File menu and choose Export, you'll get a window that pops up and it gives you a couple of options. You can choose an ASCII tab-limited file or a Unicode file. You can also export as iCal. And what that will do is it takes the scenario that you've generated and it creates an iCal file with a whole bunch of alarms in it. You can then import that into iCal and it will helpfully notify you before your bills are due. There are several bits of information in the preferences that are useful. First of all, this is where you put in your registration number. Again, this is why I was currently running an unregistered copy. Again, remember, you can go online and buy a license only $27.95, cheap, especially considering the amount of money that you can save as per these earlier tutorials. You can set the update preferences. Debtinator will normally automatically check for updates on startup, and you can choose to send anonymous system profile information. If you don't want to send that, that's fine. If you do send it, it is useful to us because it helps us gather information about what types of systems our users are using so we can properly target the product, and then we can check for updates now if you're just itching for one. General preferences just contain several miscellaneous options. By default, when you open up a file that has no payment plan, you'll get a window that pops up. We saw that earlier on the transfers tutorial that says, hey, this event occurred. Should I, do you want this to happen? Well, you can check off whether you want to automatically create transactions for those events. Sometimes you don't want to. You just want to update the balances and not worry about the ledger and be done with it. In that case, you can uncheck this, and by default, you won't. You also have the option to change this setting on the pop-up screen itself. As I said in the ledger tutorial, you can add in receipts for transactions to the system, but they don't actually store in your data file. You can keep them in one of two places. You can either copy them into a support folder for Debtinator, which you can choose whichever folder you'd like and delete the stored receipts from it, or if you uncheck this, as you add receipts, they'll just be left in place. So wherever you had them in your computer already is where they'll be before, and Debtinator will just reference them. The quick snapshots, the things that show up in the lower right of the various windows, the income for the next 30 days, expenses for the next 30 days, and so on, you can change the duration here if you'd rather see 60 days or 90 days or 7 days. There are two very important things to know here that Debtinator, because this is financial information, we try to be careful about it. So we will periodically back up your file on your own computer. Nothing transmitted to us or anything. There are two options here. One is to back up files before file format upgrades. We'll occasionally upgrade the file format with new releases of the program. And it's very important to back those up in advance. We always do our best to QA everything as thoroughly as possible, but there's always the chance that something could slip through. Um, if you don't have a backup, if you don't have a recent backup of your file before an upgrade, you could end up losing your data. So it's very important to keep that checked just to kind of cover your butt. If you want to be very paranoid, there's another option that backs up files at every save. So every time you save the document, before it does, it sends a copy of it off to the backup directory. That can very quickly generate an awful lot of files, but if you feel more comfortable doing that, then by all means, feel free. And again, you can choose the backup directory and open it to look for a file and delete the backup files and so on. For iCal exporting, you can choose your iCal files to contain an alarm and how many days before the event you want it to warn, or you can also specify to send an email, which will notify whatever email address provided when the item comes due. And those are just a couple of quick, additional tricks that you can do with Debtinator. I hope these videos have all been useful, and good luck.